it's Laura and I'm back with day 9. Let's open it up and see what goodies I have to play with today. Oh goodness, the stapled ones are really hard to open. Alrighty, oh it's full, it's very full. Alright, let's see what we've got. Okay, I think that's it. Got the prompt, we've got a candy, one of my favorites, love Andy's Mints. We've got some snowflake confetti, I love that. We've got a little envelope here. Let's open this up, a little present inside the present, that's kind of cute. And we've got, oh, look at those! Some very glittery snowflakes, they're foam. Love that, and another mint. All right, let's see what I can do with this while eating these. For day 9, I have a lot of photos. And I know I said earlier in this project that I was going to try very hard not to do this, but this was a project that I just couldn't avoid taking a lot of photos. We were making gingerbread houses and it was hilarious fun. The kids were having a blast and I just couldn't help but use a lot of photos. So I have, I think, about 6. And I'm going to be using this really cool little chipboard portfolio to document all of these photos. This had come with some sort of memory keeping box that I had received and I just wanted to play with it. So it was sitting on my desk and I thought, you know what, this is the perfect way to document all of these photos. However, y'all know that I have a tendency to add a lot of dimensional things. So while it looked super flat when I first opened it, by the time I had layered on all of my photos and papers and some embellishments, it didn't turn out to be so flat and actually took up quite a lot of space in my album. Oops. It was a lot of fun to make though, and it turned out really cute. I think this may end up being my favorite part of this entire album. So while I know this video is a little bit long for one day in my album, I hope you'll stick with me because it really did turn out fantastic. So I'm mostly using the Pinkfresh Studio side of my kit for this little mini album, and I'm trying to minimize the puffy embellishments. I think this is maybe the only puffy thing I added, really, and it was on the cover. I also kept in mind that if I was going to add anything with a little bit of dimension, I added it to the top of the portfolio and not the bottom because that part is going to stick into a pocket. So I don't want to go too thick at the bottom or else it's not going to fit in the pocket, which would be a problem because how else am I going to get the portfolio into the album? So I'm just going to go ahead and use as the front cover the kind of after we'd assembled them and then after we decorated them as the cover. And then I'm going to add a little title with these really cute little American Crafts thicker type alphas that I found at Target, and I really love these. I'm glad I picked them up when I did because I haven't seen them since, and they're a great size for this project. They're a little bigger than the pink paisley ones, but they're just, I don't know, they're a great font. So I'm going to add Gingerbread Chaos as my title because it was total chaos. Now this was a project we had done after my twins had gone to bed because A, they had already gotten a gingerbread house from school that they had created with their class, and B, I only had 4 of these little houses in the kit, and so I didn't want there to be a lot of fighting over it. And the girls would have eaten all the candy while we were trying to assemble the houses. That's just the way with 5-year-olds, right? That's gonna happen. But the older kids and I had a great time with this project, and I think it was really nice to have something that was just them and me, and we were able to assemble all of our houses. That was the trickiest part, honestly, the assembly of the houses, because the kids didn't want to leave them alone. They didn't want to leave them for time to dry and to set in place. So that was a little bit tricky, but we had a really good time and a lot of laughter. Now you may notice that I'm going to add a lot of trim to this little portfolio, and the reason for that is twofold. One, I have a lot of trim in this kit, not only in the original kit that I have put together and that Christina at the Secret Not Secret Kit Club put together for me, but also I'm getting a lot of trims in the advent calendar that I'm opening, and I want to make sure that I use them because a lot of them are very holiday themed, like sparkly, glittery, tinsel type of trims, and then I've got a lot of star trims. Now the star trim I probably could use on a layout, but I'm not very likely to use that tinsel style trim on a regular layout. It just kind of screams Christmas to me, so I want to make sure that I make a dent in that and don't have a ton of trim to add to my stash. I'm really working hard to use up as much as possible of this kit on the project. Now, I've taken a lot of the papers and I'm going to put them into the album. Now, I am leaving some of the chipboard showing, and I don't always do that when I create little portfolios like this or even in my mini albums because I'm not a huge fan of brown. It's not one of my favorite colors to work with. However, because we were making these gingerbread houses and they're brown and they're very prominently displayed in these photos, I thought it was probably fine to go ahead and leave that brown outline. Quite often what I will do is either do white or black cardstock first and then add my pattern paper on top of that so that the border around the outside there is either white or black, which I am much more comfortable using, or I will paint them, and so my chipboard albums I will paint them instead, and that too will get rid of that chipboard color. I will say that it would be nice if chipboard came in white and black as opposed to this really muddy brown color that rather looks like cardboard and is not very pleasant. But alas, it does not, at least not as far as I know. And if it did, I'm sure it would be twice as expensive. So I will just make my do with covering it. So I have these two really cute photos of my sons going crazy with the icing. So I decided to group those two together on one spread, and I'm just creating a little border there with the green paper and the tinsel looking trim, and then adding my photos on top. And they're going to kind of mirror each other at this stage, but as I continue to add things to this page, they won't look the same. I just wanted it to have a very cohesive feel, so it made sense together. And I'm going to do this through the rest of the portfolio as well. Now I will mention to you that there are two sides to this portfolio, and I don't decorate both sides simply for space. I don't have that many photos, and you could get a lot of photos in this portfolio. However, I know that it's going to be bulky just in adding paper and photos to it on the one side, and so I've left the other side blank because honestly, when you're opening it, you're really not going to think to look at the other side because of the way I have it set up. So just on the front side am I going to decorate it and add in some fun little things. I did decide to reach in my stash for these Pink Fresh alphabets because they're not super thick, and a lot of the alphas that I had pulled for this kit they're very foam thicker styled or chipboard styled alphabets. So these are technically puffy stickers, but they're not that puffy. They're pretty small, and I thought this white would stand out quite nicely on this dark blue background, whereas the gold might blend in just a little bit too much because it is kind of a dull gold. Now, the title that I chose for this page is Icing Bandits. Because they kept eating the icing, as kids are wont to do. They had such a blast. It was very lucky that this kit had a lot of icing in it, had a lot of decoration in it. We didn't even actually end up using all of the candy and all of the icing up. So that was lucky because I was a little concerned that we may run out as much as they kept sneaking some little tastes of that icing. Now I want to create a small cluster over here next to the left photo, and I'm sorry I'm working on an angle here. I have a tendency to do this with smaller projects. This is the way that I write when I'm doing my journaling or when I'm working in a notebook, I have a tendency to turn it to the left, like severely to the left. So for some reason I had done that when I was setting up my title and had not moved it back. But yes, I wanted to create a small cluster here to the left of this photo, but after I added these cute little houses at the bottom, I thought, you know what, it's a bit much. This is a very small format. It's about 4 inches across on each side, and it's really, there's not a ton of space. And no, it's got to be a little bit bigger than that, maybe 4.5, because the photos are roughly 3x4. So I moved that cluster to the right side of the page, and it's just a small circle and a little leaf. Now I've left this part in because a couple of you have asked me to do so. This is adding my journaling. So I've gone into the Project Life app and opened up the Christmas collection that I purchased for 99 cents. Chosen a pale red journaling card, and I'm adding my journaling. Now, I'm not going to make you watch the whole thing because I am changing things. I'm changing the font to roughly 30 point and the color to white so it shows up a little bit better on that card. And then I'm going to add in my journaling. Now, my intention here is to cut this journaling into strips. So as you can see, I've done 2 levels of journaling there for this portfolio. And then I'm going to go ahead and save it to my photos, then hop into my Canon selfie software and go ahead and print it. This is going to print out just like a photo would, and it works beautifully for this project. I've really enjoyed adding this to my repertoire of mini album techniques. So while that is printing, here it is now, I'm going to go ahead and start shuffling my photos, figure out what's going where, and then cut these up into strips so that I can add them onto my page and really tell the story of what's happening in these photos. I've chosen this shade of red because it matches beautifully to the icing that my oldest son is eating, and it adds a nice pop, a nice contrast against that dark blue. So it really does grab your eye and lead you straight to the story that accompanies these photographs. Now, my kids did pose for these photos, but they kept sneaking the icing, and I thought if I'm going to document them sneaking the icing, I do need good photos, and I had them, get into position how they were sneaking it. Luckily, they are very good sports about posing for pictures for mom, even silly ones, because they're used to it, honestly. I've been taking photos of them pretty consistently since they were little, and while Joseph over there on the left is not a huge fan of serious pictures, if we're trying to take a picture of the whole family, everybody smiling, he's going to be the one being a goof. But when it's a silly picture, he's all for it, and he can be counted on to be the silliest person in that photograph. So I've grabbed those tiny, tiny little snowflake sequins from my advent calendar, and I'm going to add them to the background where they're already snowflakes. It just adds a little bling, a little sparkle to that background without adding a lot of bulk, which is one of the reasons I really like sequins and was excited to have so many different kinds in this kit. Despite the fact that snowflakes, no, we didn't get any snow this month at all. There was no snow to document in my December daily, but that's okay. We did get a little bit of snow in November, but of course it only lasted like 3 hours and I didn't take any photos. Hopefully we'll get some in January because then I'll have something to scrapbook about it. I have a lot of supplies for snow layouts and not many snow related pictures. Now, where I grew up in Michigan, we would get a lot of snow, so that would have been very, very helpful, and I probably could use up some of that stash on some older pictures of me growing up in the snow-filled winters in Michigan. But here in Mississippi, not so much. Now, I do want to vary the palette of this portfolio because I don't want it to be boring. I don't want it to be the same papers, the same style all the way through. So I have switched now to the Felicity Jane papers, and I'm using this beautiful pink stripe. And I have this photo of my daughter playing with the icing. This is after we were done, and they were a little bit hog wild on the icing after we were done eating, and they knew that they could because we had enough. And she had squirted a whole bunch into her mouth, too much apparently, and was like, oh no, and was catching it in her hand and laughing because it was just pouring out of her mouth. And I did consider making it just a flip up type pocket instead, but then decided on this side, no, I'll do the flip up on this side because I do have room here. And it matched her pajamas a little bit better anyway to do it on the pink as opposed to the dark navy blue. Of course, I'm bringing in some more trim, and this is that beautiful gold leaf trim. And I think this made a nice little dividing line on this page because there wasn't going to be a whole lot going on. I was going to have two photos on the right side, and I wanted to have a little bit of decoration on that left side. Because this is such a small format, you have to think about how much you're going to put on each page and try not to overwhelm that page with too many photos or too much embellishment. But I'm not a minimalist either, so I do have to add some decoration onto the page, and I would not be comfortable with leaving it completely blank. One of the tricky parts about using this style of little portfolio, and this came in one of the little kits that I ordered. What was it? It was a grab bag from Cheeky Studio, I think. So if you want to go back and see that video to see where this came from, you will see it. It's in the little memory box that she had sent. I had ended up using the memory box part for a different project and didn't need the little portfolio, so I'm going to go ahead and make use of it now. So what I'm doing at this moment is I'm creating a little bit of a flip up for this photo. And the easiest way that I have found to make these is to simply take the measurement of the border of this photo and then double it. So then I can fold this in half, use my bone folder to create a nice crease on it, and you've created a flip up pocket. This is just super quick, super easy way to make it, and it's very sturdy. This is a great way to create some interactive elements without any special products, no snap flip flappy thingies or anything like that. Now, because these photos were printed on my Canon Selfie, they are able to be handled without leaving a bunch of fingerprints, and so do keep that in mind as well. A lot of your professional photography places are going to be printing on a type of paper that will show fingerprints, and so perhaps you would want more protection for those photos. But I would say this is a great reason to use the Canon Selfie for a project like this. And I am finding myself doing a lot more mini album style projects lately, and I really enjoy them. So I hope y'all won't mind that I include some of those in future videos, because I really am leaning more toward mini albums than doing traveler's notebooks. I'm getting a little bored with traveler's notebooks, even though everyone else seems to be all gung-ho about them, and I saw that one of the kit clubs is going full-on traveler's notebook, and I thought that was interesting. So they obviously are very popular, but they're just too small for me. They're too narrow, and I don't really enjoy working in such a small format. But the 6x8 format I really am enjoying, and I think it gives me enough room to use photos that are a little bit bigger, at least 3x4, because I feel like 3x4 photos get squished into traveler's notebooks, and I don't really have enough space to share the photos and the story. Perhaps I just have a little bit too much to say. That is a distinct possibility as well, but knowing thyself is an important part of any creative process, and you don't want to overwhelm or underwhelm yourself. You don't want to work on a project that you're not excited about, because you're not going to be as creative, you're not going to be as motivated to complete that project. And I have found that true with my traveler's notebooks. I tend to avoid those projects because I just don't find them all that interesting. It's just too small of a format for me to enjoy. I am comfortable with this particular size though. I think it's about a 5x8, and I can comfortably get 2 3x4 photos onto one side without feeling like I have squished them in, I've cut them way down. I don't love tiny photos. I just don't. I know that about myself. I love larger photos. The photos are the point for me. If I wasn't sharing the photo, then I'm not going to enjoy the process, and I'm not going to enjoy the completed page if my photos are lost. So I like this at least 5 inches I think I need to work with, but I really like the 6x8. So I've grabbed these 3 tags, and they're a mix of items. I've got some from the Felicity Jane kit, one of them is from a printable, I think, and the other was from a Project Life card that I had cut down a while back for some DIY embellishments. I have added 3 different types of trims into the holes of those tags. I've got some tinsel, I've got some twine, and I've got some ribbon, and that adds some texture to the page, a little bit of interest, and I love that look of the little pieces sticking out of the top. I just think it makes it more interesting for you to feel it and touch it. And because this album is intended to be handled, it's intended to be touched and felt and experienced a little bit differently than my larger 12 by 12 albums, I want to include more of those textural elements. Now I've saved this little pink house for this side of the portfolio, and I think I'm going to show you in a minute that it is the same style of houses as what's on the other page, which ties in the 2 pages together and makes them feel a little bit more cohesive. But this is a very simple spread. I did put a small little piece of thin chipboard, but I made sure to put it on the outside and not near the binding of the portfolio, so it didn't add too much bulk there. Also, I have the back. So now I'm going to use this beautiful wood grain that was in the Felicity Jane kit, and I have my journaling strips. But I don't just want to pop them onto the page. I feel like that would be a little bit boring. So I'm going to reach in and grab one of these large tags that I've been using as a template throughout this album because they are a brilliant size. Especially this larger tag is great for holding a small photo or some journaling or just a little bit of embellishment even. It's just an excellent size to include in an album like this. And so I'm just using it as a template little guide for cutting out a similar tag in this beautiful buffalo check, which is absolutely gorgeous, by the way. And it helps me to make sure that my corners are cut evenly as well. I don't often worry about it being perfect like that, but when it is the focal point of this side of the portfolio, there's really not a lot else that's going to be on this. I want to make sure it looks right because you're going to notice if it's completely different. So I'm going to add this really tiny 3-inch, 4-inch, it might be 4-inch doily, and it is again one of those Cambridge doilies that I get from Amazon, and I really like them. And I'm going to add that underneath of my journaling just to give it a little bit of decoration, just to jazz it up just a little bit. And I think that just that little touch keeps it from being a super boring page. So here I'm going to flip through it very quickly and show you all the interactive bits and pieces in this little project. And then here is the pocket I am going to slide it into. For the outside of the pocket, I am going to very minimally embellish this because 2 reasons. One, I would normally put some pattern paper inside the pocket behind the portfolio just to add a little bit of interest, but I'm not going to do that this time for 2 reasons. One, because of the color of this portfolio, it already pops quite beautifully against that nice stark white. And 2, it's just going to create friction and add a little bit of bulk to this pocket that I really don't need. As you can see, it's already quite bulky. Can barely fit in the pocket as is. So I'm just adding a little bit of a netted star trim, then my number 9 and a couple of these wood veneer stars, and it's done. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know in the comments below if you would try this little portfolio style layout in your December daily. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.